Hello and welcome to this week's IG Live. As you know, we come every Thursday to you and bring you interviews with creators of diverse children's books. And today we are talking to an author-illustrator team. Hello. We are talking to Cynthia Harmony and Devon Holzwarth. Of hope about immigration and migration. So it's a really special book. Hold on just a second. Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm Devon.
Hi, nice to meet you. I think Cynthia's on too, I think. Yes, hi.
Hey.
Hi.
So great to have you both on here.
Yes,
Thanks for
you
having
for
us.
having us. Yeah. So
Well,
excited
why
to
don't we
be
go
here
ahead
with
and,
Devon.
what's that?
I'm so excited to be here with Devon too. Thank you for having us both.
Well, it's always really fun when we get to have the author and the illustrator of a book on and talk about kind of, because the text and the pictures are both such an important part of the book. But why don't we jump in, and maybe Cynthia, you can start, just introduce yourself and tell us what was your journey to becoming an author.
Sure. So I was born in Mexico City. I went to school there. I grew up there, and I studied psychology first for my BA and then education. And then when I was studying education, my master's, I went to Madrid, and then that's when I started really getting into the book world and appreciating that and actually considering that as a career. So then I went back to Mexico first, to Mexico City, started working in museums and started developing content for children. And then from there, I had the goal to eventually publish. But first, I started in the educational market. So I did textbooks and then books, level readers for kids here when I moved to Arizona later. And then I really wanted picture books were always like my dream.
Oh, I love that. And how about you, Devon? Introduce yourself and tell us about becoming, well, I know we're going to be talking more about your illustration. Hold on a second. I just realized hers frozen. I think she's trying to get back in.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I know we mainly, a lot of us mainly know her for her illustration, but also I know you've written two books, right? Written and illustrated two books. So tell us about that.
I'm disconnected. We're having a really big storm, and
Oh no.
so I think I was disconnected. I might have not been.
Well, it was frozen, so I'm glad you were able to get back in.
I've written and I illustrate mostly picture books, but my journey was I did go to an art school, RISD, and I studied textile design because I love color and I love pattern, but it really was always a little bit of a not quite the right fit for me. And after school, I was living in the Bay Area in California, and I was in San Jose, and San Francisco was too far for me, the commuting and everything. So to go work at a mill or some textile related place. And so I started a mural painting business, and I did that for many years. And I was painting really large too and selling fine art. And this was a good sweet spot for me. And then we moved to Germany, and I was here with two little kids, and it was just I needed something else, and for work, obviously, I wasn't comfortable enough with the language to start a mural business again or something. But and I ended up taking some courses for picture book illustration, and thought, wow, this is a really good fit. And in 2018, I had my first book published, Found You, in the UK, and just went on from there. Yeah. So.
Oh, I love that, and I love that you've kind of had the opportunity to do different things, both of you. You know that this is, but it all kind of fits together. Like you can see kind of the through line for all of the different work that you've been doing. And so let's talk about your book, A Flicker of Hope. I know it's also available in Spanish. And tell us about the book and what was the inspiration behind it?
Okay, so I'll start. So this is the one that we're talking about today, A Flicker of Hope. It's the story about Lucia and her papa. Her papa needs to go looking for work in the spring, so he has to migrate north, and they both live in the Masawa community in the Mexican reserve of the monarch butterfly, and the butterflies also live in the spring. So it's a parallel story of both the butterflies living and Papa living as well, and then the homecoming.
Where did you have the idea of doing the parallel stories? I mean, because I love this idea about the two kinds of migration.
Yeah, so it kind of happened organically. My sister worked at the Mexican Reserve with that community specifically, and that's when I saw the videos, because she also produced videos to promote the area for tourism. So when I saw that and I heard all her stories and particularly about the community and the families living there, I was really inspired. I thought, oh wow, this is going to be a wonderful story. I want to write this, but in the beginning I thought, well, it's gonna be focused more on the monarch butterfly. So and then I didn't know, I was like, well, maybe it should be a nonfiction book about butterflies and the Mexican Reserve. But then thinking about the community, it was like, well, no, it has to be both things at the same time. So that's how the idea, it just needed to be both things, because it's the community that receives the butterflies. So I needed to be about both of them.
And Devon, what was it like for you when you got the text? How did you go about like thinking how you're going to represent this artistically?
Oh, it was really cool because it was a very unusual circumstance, because I was visiting my in-laws in Texas, and we were sitting outside. It was probably October, and just there was a little trickle of monarch butterflies flying over us, and it was just a little bit. So like, one or two, and then a few seconds later, then a few more, and they were going right over the backyard, and I'd never seen that there before. It is where they go through, but I hadn't seen it there in all these years that we've been visiting them, and I'd even lived there in some summers. And I went inside and I'd gotten an email about this manuscript, and I just couldn't believe it. And I was just, it's just those things, when they happen, it's just so fantastic. And it wasn't just that was like a sign, oh, I need to write the book, but then I read Cynthia's words and I was like, oh my gosh, like it's such a good story.
I love it.
Yeah. So I thought it was just so clever. And I actually wanted to know, like, how long did it take you, Cynthia, from when you were starting this idea of like maybe nonfiction to then working it into being about both of them and, developing it all the way to where it was? Because I know, Liz, you can get stuck on one idea for a while and just think it's the one, and you just have to keep trying. But
exactly. So yeah, I had this idea. I hadn't even sat down to actually write, okay, this is going to be a nonfiction. But I just had this idea, it could be potentially a nonfiction. And then it was 2018. So I live in Tucson, Arizona. And during that time, we had these immigration crisis where families were being separated. And then we had these detention centers here. So I went to try to visit one and try to donate stuff. And they wouldn't allow people there. But I came back and I was heartbroken. And I wrote a poem that day about the experience of children maybe being separated, and then immigration. And then that poem got revised. I was like, this is my starting point. So that's when I started, I knew it was not going to be nonfiction. And then it was like mid 2018, and then I revised a lot, and then I won We Need Diverse Books mentorship. So I got to work on that particular manuscript with my mentor, who was Rob Sanders. He's excellent at nonfiction, but he just helped me with this story. And then in 2020, we got the offer for these. So it didn't take that long for that part. It was probably the manuscript that I've worked on the longest, but it wasn't like a lot of years. But then to come out, the publication process was a little bit longer. So yeah,
I always think that's so interesting. I think a lot of people don't realize how long it is from even, I mean, of course the writing and the process of doing the illustrations takes a long time, but then even once that's finished, for it to actually come out, it's a lot longer than I think than most people would think it would be. But I love that you brought up the issue of immigration, because I think it's something that's so divisive and so political. And one of the really beautiful things that your book does is really kind of humanize it and help people really get into the mindset of what it is like for these families. So what did you think that, how did you go about the kind of thinking about how to do that, and what do you hope people take away from the book?
Well, I think I just came from a place where from experience, I am an immigrant. I had, I'm living, so I would just share this moment with you, so you know where in what space I was in. I come home from all these crises that was happening, and then my son, my youngest, was 3 at the time, so I lay down with him so he could take a nap. And I'm just thinking, like, I'm just so fortunate to be with my child and not ever had to face anything like that. So that's when I realized, yeah, I am an immigrant, but there's so many, it's such a nuanced situation. There's so many aspects to it that go, yeah, unseen. So I also grew up in Mexico, so I know a lot of the reality of it, and I thought it was something that needed to be out there.
Right. I love that. And I know you've also talked about the importance of finding the universal in very specific moments. And sometimes it's a little counterintuitive that when you kind of go into your own individual experiences, it actually is the best way to connect with other people. Something about tapping into those emotions, that people can connect with the emotions, even if they haven't had that same specific experience and they're from a different background. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, so I remember that for all of my writing, for all of the stories, that you have to bring in the very specific details and what makes that unique for you. Because I think about it like traveling. When you travel to a different culture, a different country, you experience all these little things, and it's those moments and those experiences that stay with you. That just it's not gonna blend into everything else that you know. You're gonna actually remember those. And then also the connections that you make there, which are the universal aspects, that we're all the same. We're all human. We're all sharing the same emotions, the same, psychological needs and everything. So I think it's looking at it from that, like when you tap into both the universal, the emotions that we all share, but also the specific experience. So because that is something that hopefully will stay with you.
How about you, Devon? Like, how did that, I mean, because you've also had the experience of moving to a new country although under different circumstances. How did you kind of figure out how to bring those kinds of emotions into it, but also have the really specific details about this community and the butterflies and all of that?
Yeah, I touch on that experience of finding yourself in a place that is different and where you don't feel like you fit in. It's hard to make friends. In my first book that I did, Found You, because, and I did it without even thinking about it. It's just the story that came out, right? Because it was what I was experiencing, and my kids going to kindergarten where they spoke no German yet, and we've been here for 12 years now, and just having to learn a new way of doing things and always being different than other people around there. And there's very, very few Americans here. We're in the part of Germany that I'm in. And it's been a beautiful experience in the highs and lows, and I'm really thankful for it, because it does give me a perspective that I wouldn't have. I didn't grow up in the US. I would visit family. I grew up in Panama, but I lived there for quite a few years. And so it's having different homes in different places is also a comfortable thing to me, right. And so, but yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Cynthia was saying with finding these moments in which we're all the same. We have experiences that are very similar, and finding that so the song that Papa has with Lucia, that this is like such a strong connection, these moments between their parents and their children, and a song or laughter or just touch. These are all things that are so part of our daily life, right, and they're so familiar. And I like to bring those in when I'm working as well and making pictures, because those are the connecting moments, that we find each other. And so I found those places easily in Cynthia's words, and in which I could say, okay, this is where that moment is. I could see it when reading it.
And I know you said that it was also very therapeutic for you to paint all of these butterflies. Can you talk about that?
Did I say therapeutic, or did I say pointless? Yeah, I think so, because what can happen is you can see in your mind what you want, mm-hmm, right? And then it can just be a long road to get there. Mm-hmm. So I wanted a lot of I wanted to feel like the butterflies lifting off, right? And that you're almost in almost like you're lifting with them, and to have some areas be very dense and they're in the foreground and the background, and some parts are very open so that your eyes can look around and find many places to settle. And I like to achieve that no matter what kind of illustration it is. But in this one, it needed all these little parts, right? And so it was just it just took a while. But also really cool to think about. Before working on the book, I did not realize the lifespan of a monarch butterfly, which I think is weeks or months of time. Cynthia probably knows better than me.
I guess months, yeah.
Yeah. And just to think about how many butterflies, how many monarchs make this journey, and yep, and it really is their ancestors coming back. So it's, yeah, it's I couldn't draw that many. So, yeah.
So now that you're, that this book is out, what are you guys working on now? Maybe Cynthia, you want to start do you already have another project in the works?
Yes, I have 2 other picture books are coming out in the next 2 years. That's with FSG Macmillan. I'm really excited about this. It's a completely different kind of story. So I have these 2 coming out, and then I have 2 others that are unannounced. So we'll talk about those in a different time. But what I'm working on right now, like just drafting and working, is it's a chapter book. So we'll see where that goes.
Oh, and is it a really different experience for you switching to writing chapter books? Although I know you've worked on writing textbooks. So you're maybe you're used to switching genres.
Yes, it's more, yeah, it is similar to the level readers that I was doing for the schools, but I wanted to, I this is not for educational purposes, so I don't have to be thinking about that. I just wanted it to be fun, and for that age group. So it is different because all of it is different, the structure, the format, everything. But I'm learning.
Nice. Oh, and how about you, Devon?
That's so cool. I am finishing up 2 picture books right now. That's why I might look a little tired. Have more projects to come, and some really neat things. One that will come out in October. The one I'm working on right now is a nonfiction, and which I also really enjoy working on nonfiction, although the research for this book nearly killed me. Yeah, and then I'm going to start in this coming year getting back into writing again. And there's 2 or 3 ideas that I have not been leaving me alone. And so I try, it's funny, I try and keep them at arm's length, because I feel like if I think about it too much without actually working on it, I sort of kill the idea. And so I'm excited to come back to that when I have time later in the year.
And do you think you'll also do the illustrations for it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we look forward to that. And when your new books do come out, we will make sure to share them in our stories. Thank you both for taking the time to talk with us today. This was so fun. And it's a really lovely book. Anybody who hasn't gotten it, you know, be sure to look for it. It's A Flicker of Hope. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the name in Spanish. Un Aleteo. I can't remember.
There it is. Un Aleteo de Esperanza, yeah.
I couldn't remember how to say it. Okay. Thank you both so much. And anybody, if you joined us late, this will be up in a few minutes on Instagram and later on our YouTube channel. So you can go and watch the whole thing. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.